Hey y'all, it's Brandon with Voodoo Forge, and if you are just now getting into blacksmithing or interested in getting into blacksmithing, I just want to tell you right now, this time period seems like the best time period ever to be getting into blacksmithing. And let me kind of tell you why that is my opinion. The first reason I would say now is availability of information. When I got into blacksmithing, which was back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of information out there, but it was more difficult to, understand, to digest. There were a lot of books out there, but a lot of the books that were available for blacksmithing were from the 19th century. And like one that comes to mind is Practical Blacksmithing, which I've gotten information that I can use out of now. But when I was just beginning, I was like, what in the hell are they talking about? But, you know, as I've grown as a smith, I can get useful information out of it. And that was pretty much, if you were starting out on your own, books is what you had then. There were some like forums online, like I think iForge Iron is still around, where you could, like post and ask a question and then get 9 different opinions 4 days later. So that was actually really helpful, but it just wasn't like the information that's available now. YouTube is a resource that was in its infancy when I was getting into blacksmithing, and there were some blacksmiths that I found on there when I discovered it, but I didn't have internet at the house, so I would have to sneak and watch on a desktop computer at work at the time. And what were some of let's see, Purgatory Ironworks, he's still around. Trenton Ty, I believe it's his name. There was a channel, Modern Blacksmithing. He's defunct. He doesn't do anything anymore. But he had some it's some really funny content that you could learn some stuff from back then, and that was kind of where that started for me. But now, if you're just beginning blacksmithing, you have thousands and thousands of blacksmithing videos available on YouTube, and then other platforms and other places online and Facebook groups. There's all this information out there. Some of it's terrible. Some people may think the information I give you is terrible. They can sit on it. But there's so much more information available to a new blacksmith in a format that is easily digestible. It's really difficult to learn some of this stuff from books, but if you can visualize it, if you can see it, to me anyway, it's easier for me to learn that way. And that is the biggest change that I've seen, one of the 3 biggest changes I've seen in availability of information. After I had been trying to learn on my own for a while, I found out about the Blacksmith Association that was closest to me, which is the Fiddler's Grove Blacksmith Association. They're in Lebanon, Tennessee. They operate out of the Wilson County Fairgrounds, and it is essentially a group of blacksmiths. They're affiliated with the Appalachian area chapters of AACB chapters of blacksmith. Yeah, and they had classes, weekly classes I could go to, and monthly meetings and demonstrations. And there were really some great guys there who I learned so much from. And it exposed me to having somebody correct me and show me what I was doing wrong, show me how to fix it, show me some basic techniques that I could use on lots of things. And that was a huge help. That really got me going. And blacksmith associations have existed for decades. There have always been blacksmithing events, but they have really picked up. It seems like to me that they've really picked up in the last few years, and you have more opportunities to be around more blacksmiths, to learn more techniques, to use more tools without having to go and buy them. So that is a major benefit now as opposed to before. Availability of tools is a thing that just right now in the past 3 or 4 years is mind-boggling. When I started blacksmithing, and actually a year ago, if somebody was getting into blacksmithing, there are things I would recommend for them to use as an anvil that I absolutely would not recommend now. This is what I started blacksmithing on. Now, it has been under the workbench for years now, but this is a piece of railroad track. This is a piece of railroad track that I stole from my father's barn that he had my entire life. If he needed to straighten something out, he'd go hit it on the railroad track, straighten out something for the tractor, or just anything. This was his anvil. And I used this for, a couple of months when I got going, but then something cool happened. A guy I had been friends with years at a commercial cave I'd worked at when I was in college had this anvil, this Peterite anvil, and found out I was getting into blacksmithing and gave it to me, which was amazing. It really helped me leaps and bounds just having a proper anvil. So, as much as I don't want to be like, back in my day, if you were a good little blacksmith, the blacksmith fairy would come along and give you an anvil. Yeah, that is exactly what happened to me. And it rained gin and tonics. Whoo. Wait, what? Woo, woo, gin and tonic. I don't really recall that. Or do I? I'm really not saying everybody got free anvils back in the day. But what I am saying is if you did get an anvil, you were pretty lucky. They were expensive. They were out there to find. Vintage anvils were out there to find, but you had to hunt for them. And while they didn't cost as much as they did now, money was worth less than it is now. Quite a bit less. But anyway, they were out there, but they just weren't as easy to get as they are now. Case in point, this is a 132-pound Chinese-made cast steel anvil. And I know, there's people who despise these. But I ordered this 4 days ago, and the FedEx man brought it up the driveway and dropped it off today. 132-pound anvil, under $250, delivered to my door. Yeah, it needs to be dressed. Yeah, it's not going to last forever. It's not the highest quality anvil in the world. But that's pretty daggone good in my book to spend $250 and it's here. You just got to dress it and make a stand for it and it's ready to go. Not that long ago, that busted up hunk on the bottom would cost you $250, and it needs an enormous amount of restoration. And now, I could probably sell that for $500 or $600, or more, depending. So, that's the new anvils are a bargain for a beginning blacksmith. And you're certainly not limited to a 132-pound anvil. There's a 66-pounder. There's another 66-pounder. And there's 88-pounders and 110-pounders. There's all kinds of new production anvils that are inexpensive and you can have delivered directly to you. And it's not just anvils that are more available. When I started blacksmithing, I was terrified to make tongs. I still don't like to make tongs, but I can. But I needed tongs, or thought I needed tongs. So I found a farrier supply place and got a pair of farrier's tongs, and these are useless for 99% of the work of it. I cruised antique stores and found these. These are actually pretty good half-inch tongs. These are as useless as tits on a boar hog. But antique tongs is what was around unless you happen to be at a blacksmith conference or something like that. Now, yeah, of course, there was Blacksmith Depot and Centaur Forge. There were a few places that had them to order, but it wasn't like now where you can get cheap drop forged tongs, order them, and they're at your house in a couple of days. That's amazing, and that is a great way to get you going on tools like that. Now, I will say right now, it's not such a good time for finding vintage tools. They're still out there, they're still available, but the cost has increased. But with the availability of new production tools, they're probably less quality than the vintage tools. I think that fills the gap nicely for beginning blacksmiths. Another thing that has really changed and helped popularize blacksmithing, and probably has done more to make cheaper tools available and grow the art or craft or whatever you want to call it, blacksmithing, is that television program, the Forged in Fire. That has introduced more people to the concept of, yeah, you can still go out there and hammer away and make things, and that has gotten people interested in it, and the interest is what has generated these tools and the YouTube channels and things like that. Well, YouTube channels were here before Forged in Fire, but the modern tools and stuff coming out, that has helped to create the market where these things are available. So that's pretty cool. Even though I watch that show and get so mad at it. So mad at it. Big deal, you quenched it. Are you gonna temper it now? What are you doing? What are you doing? But those are my rather rambling thoughts about why this is an amazing time to be getting into blacksmithing. If you're watching this video and you're like, I don't know if I should be getting into blacksmithing, you should. You should get into blacksmithing. You should watch some videos about it. You should find a local forge group somewhere close to you. You should go and see some forging and try some forging and make sure it's something you're going to like, and meet some friends who will support you in this. And then you should start buying some tools and putting together a little shop and hammer some stuff out. For $500 you can get an anvil, a forge, a hammer, tongs, some steel, and get to work. Get to beating on something. Really good time for it. Back in my day, we didn't have the YouTube. You learned by getting hit with a stick, and you'd wash your hands with brake cleaner and other carcinogenics. That doesn't seem smart. How old are you? Shut your hole, penny waste. Have a gin and tonic. Oh, hey, thanks. Well, if you're buying, y'all behave yourselves.